It's my pleasure to welcome you virtually for our special webinar. My name is Marguerite Mongin, and I'm the president of French American Aid for Children, or FAAC for short. FAAC is a volunteer organization dedicated to supporting children in need, at risk, or in trouble in the US and in France. Created at the onset of World War II to help soldiers and their families, we continue to provide long-term support to children's institutions, as well as distribute distinct one-time donations. This past year, with the dreadful pandemic, our group has pivoted to focus our giving on two main actions: special COVID grants benefiting vulnerable children through educational, medical, and prevention of social abuse programs, and also development of children's nutrition education. Children really need to become active participants in a lifetime of good habits and good health. Special thanks go to our co-chairs, Leanne McAllister and Wendy Weiler, for making this exciting evening happen. They have organized a fabulous panel of experts who will present to you through their interactive dialogue, hands-on nutrition tips and techniques, including a live cooking demonstration, as we want at FAAC to address today's children's nutrition issues. It is alarming to see how much the global pandemic has intensified the disparity in access to proper and affordable nutrition. As parents, grandparents, or caregivers, we have to instill healthy habits in children. So let us listen to the pros. It is my pleasure to introduce our first panelist and moderator, Pamela Cook, Executive Director of the Laurie M. Tisch Center for Food, Education and Policy at Columbia University. Pam.
Thank you, Marguerite, and thank you everyone for joining us. We have a great panel plan. This is going to be something where you're going to get to see Bill cooking, as you're already seeing, and Stacey do some great interactive activities. So get ready to be really excited. So why do we need to engage children in their nutritional journey for a lifetime of good health? The reasons why we need to do this is that we have a really challenging food environment. If we think about the US food supply and the world is following us, 60% of foods are what are called highly processed, which means they are very changed from how they were grown and nutrient poor while being calorie rich, that does not end up helping us to stay healthy. There's also excessive marketing for these foods that is particularly targeted at children constantly. So much more money goes into this marketing than goes into educating children about food. We're having larger and larger portion sizes, and we have unhealthful foods is relatively less expensive than healthy foods. We also have a large fast food scene. Childhood hunger is at an all-time high. Before the pandemic, there was 1 in 6 children in the United States that were hungry. That was 12.5 million children. In July of 2020, it was 1 in 4 children. That's 18 million children. And I know we're not all out and about, but just think 1 out of every 4 children that you see is hungry and doesn't know where their next meal is coming from a lot of the time. That is also true in New York City. This is from City Harvest. In New York City, over 466,000 children are experiencing food insecurity, and that's a 49% increase from pre-COVID figures. So it's even more challenging to be food insecure with this food environment that we have. We also have a broken food chain. This is what contributes to that food environment. First is how we treat our food workers. We've all heard so much about food workers being essential. The reality is people who work all along the food chain, from how we grow food to the back scenes in restaurants, all along the food chain, are some of the lowest paying, most dangerous jobs that we have, just in terms of what they do, let alone now being out in COVID. We also have the challenges of the way that we grow food using many different chemicals. Particularly, there has been over the last few decades a large increase in herbicides that are used as weed killers that are producing super weeds and affecting the environment. And the way we're growing food is contributing to climate change with greenhouse gases, even though we do have ways that we could grow food that would mitigate climate change by absorbing greenhouse gases. We already talked about that we process food or change food a lot. Think about your great grandmother, or if you're really young, your great great grandmother walking into a large supermarket now, and all those foods in boxes and bags, it wouldn't even be recognizable as food. We also then have all of this packaging for food and lots of packaging waste. All of this has led to that we don't really value food and eat food as really cherish it. So one of our main messages is to cook simple meals like Bill is doing and eat together and make eating time really mealtime. And finally, we have a really large problem with food waste. So all of this contributes to the challenges that we have. What can we do about this? One thing that we can do is help people to navigate through this really challenging environment, because even though we want to change it, it's not going to change really quickly. To change it, what we can do is advocate for change. So once again, we're focusing on the navigating through the environment. Why are we doing this? Education of children that is happening in community centers, in homes, in schools is primary prevention and what is needed for children with the current food supply we have. Today's children are tomorrow's adults, and they will be facing the public health challenges we have because of diet related diseases, the ecological challenges we have because of the food subsystem that we have that is contributing to greenhouse gases and other changes to our planet, as well as the social justice challenges that we are having that make very inequitable access to healthy food across neighborhoods. So now I want to tell you that through this navigating by educating children, we're going to see through an example that Stacey is going to show that children, once they learn about this, become advocates for change. And that's what we need for today's children to become tomorrow's adults that will be healthy. So I want to talk a little bit about something that's called the division of responsibility for feeding. This was started by someone named Ellen Satter. Adults are responsible for what food is served, when it is served, and where it is served. Those are the jobs. So the adults choose what, when, where, and also the culture of the meal. Whereas children are responsible for how much and even whether they eat. And so some of our main themes for today is start young with children cooking, eating, and establishing these healthy habits. Make mealtime time to eat. We also don't want to only think about food. We want to think about our drinks, and Stacey's going to talk to us about that. And try to cook at least once a week with families. The Kids Cook Monday, which is part of the Mondays campaign, is a great way and has great resources for families to cook together on Monday, which is actually the day where a lot of us start healthy habits. So use the Kids Cook Monday. I helped to develop that program, and we actually had, when we were starting to develop it, families together with 2-year-olds to teenagers all cooking together. So no child is too young to start cooking and eating well. And so now I want to introduce our other two panelists. And first, I want to say again that what you can expect in this webinar is a lot of action, a lot of cooking, a lot of activities, and a lot of opportunities to answer your questions. If you haven't seen it already, you can put your questions in the question box, and we'll address those as we can throughout the conversation that we're having. So our first panelist is Stacey Antine, who is the founder, author, and director of Health Barn USA, a leader in healthy lifestyle education for families. Over 15 years and 75,000 families later, the barn continues to offer year-round, hands-on educational garden-to-table seasonal programs for children 2 to 15 and adults of all ages in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and via Zoom now. Stacey also teaches school assemblies and workshops nationwide. Through the Health Barn Foundation, Stacey gifts nutritious meals where they needed most for families, seniors, and people in need. And then second, we have Bill Telepan. Many of you may know him from Telepan Restaurant on Manhattan's Upper West Side. Bill is currently the culinary director of the Metropolitan Museum. And for the last 15 years, Bill has been an active partner and executive chef for Wellness in the Schools that creates healthier environments for students to learn and grow. The Wellness in the Schools Cook for Kids programs works with schools to feed kids real food. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Bill, who's going to talk all about the meal that he's cooking. Take it away, Bill.
All right, so I'm making a pasta with broccoli, cauliflower, beans, and chicken in it. And it's one that we teach to the kids at the Wellness in the Schools. You know, what our program does, Pam, is we go into the school cafeterias. I'm a little loud for my chicken. And we work alongside the cafeteria workers to help them, you know, change the meals they're cooking from less processed to more scratch cooking, more fruits and vegetables. Because as you know, because the Tisch Center did an 2-year evaluation of Wellness in the Schools, that fruits and vegetables in front of kids are going to eat more, and it showed that evaluation showed that. So this one, our staff also goes into the classrooms and teach cooking classes like this one, where we go in and we give the kids little plastic knives, and it ranges from pre-K all the way to 8th grade. And these kids cut vegetables, they smell the food, and they actually get to go over some heat through induction burners and cook the food. So this one, we're gonna just cook the chicken for a little bit. I cut the chicken into little bite-sized pieces, and then I took the cauliflower and the broccoli and I cut them into little bite-sized pieces. And these are areas where when you're cooking as a family, you can get the kids, if you get them either just to break the broccoli and cauliflower apart, get them involved, and then have them, and as they get older, they can work over the stove and work with the heat. Get them involved. It really shows how you know, once they get they have that sort of what's the word, that investment in it, they really, you know, they'll really love to, you know, try different things. And what's great about having this in schools is that parents of like low income can, you know, in schools they could try kale, they could try things like broccoli or cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, that they may not want to bring to their home and waste it if the kids aren't going to eat it. So our program brings those vegetables and fruits to kids to try that they may not, you know, they may be a little finicky about, and make it easier to bring it to home.
Thank you, Bill. You know, I want to say too, is I did some research where we actually had kids cook meals that were going to be served in the cafeteria, vegetable, bean, and whole grain meals. And it was only the kids that cooked it in the classroom that ate it. We even had lessons, and I taught all these lessons, which were all about why to eat those foods without cooking, and the kids didn't eat it. So it shows just how much kids getting involved in the kitchen makes a huge difference about whether or not they eat it. So I'm going to turn it over to Stacey. And before we do that, we're going to show a little video that's going to show just how excited kids can get about healthy eating.
My name is Koch, and I will be doing the edamame challenge. Eat healthy.
Love it, love it. So Stacey, why don't you tell us a little bit about the nutritional aspects of the recipe that Bill's cooking?
Okay, well, I just want to say for any registered dietitians out there, it's RDN Day. So big shout out to our professional, amazing people that are doing really great work, as we all are. And it's also National Nutrition Month. So this has been a really great thing that the French American Aid for Children has decided to do during this time. So I just want to, you know, one of the things is we're trying to make it interactive, and these are similar activities that we do with the kids on Zoom, and also when we're cooking at Health Barn with the kids. So the thing is that, as you know, children love to cook. They're cooking more than ever. They're watching television programs. And it's really a missed opportunity if you're baking with your children or you're cooking with your children and it's not healthy, because it goes hand in hand. And the truth is, if you want to eat healthy, everyone in the house should be chopping. This is the key: chop, chop, chop. And you shouldn't be afraid of children, you know, using knives. We use the Curious Chef knives. You can get those on Amazon. Super easy. We have 2-year-olds chopping, claw and dolphin cut. Very easy. And you will have kids eating vegetables in a minute if you just let them chop. This is it. Chop, 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 chop. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. And what I'm really excited about here is we're going to talk about Bill's recipes. So one of the things, and this is really important, is it's not only just cooking with the kids, but it's actually educating them by empowering them with why these foods are good for their bodies, right? Because they're going to be, everybody knows vegetables are good for their bodies. But if they're chopping, they're experiencing, they're learning, they're challenged, they're like, wow, this is cool. This is like good for my muscles, good for my body, gives me energy. Then you have like a home run. Then they're willing to do it. So I am just going to click on here and I'm just going to go through the ingredients really fast. So, Bill's, I'm helping Bill out here. He's busy in the kitchen. So we've got pasta, we've got chicken thighs, which is a very inexpensive. So instead of chicken breasts, you can use the thighs and cut it up, as Bill said. So, this is a protein. We've got the garlic, we've got extra virgin olive oil, broccoli, cauliflower, butter, just a little touch of butter, because I know the chefs love their little sheen of butter on things. And some white beans. And of course, Parmesan cheese is like chocolate chips in the world of a child. If you sprinkle Parmesan cheese on anything, they will eat it. So here we go. Everybody should have their pens and paper out. What are the health benefits of these ingredients? Number 1 is broccoli. Record your answers. Number 2 is extra virgin olive oil. And number 3 is pasta. And this could be whole wheat pasta, whole grain pasta. Could be semolina pasta. In this case, I think Bill just went to the store and got from his local store pasta. So we're not going to get really particular about this. We're just going to say, for the sake of this, pasta. So these 3 foods that are in Bill's recipe, let's see if you can guess the health benefits of them. Again, broccoli, olive oil, and pasta. Okay, Bill is showing off his broccoli. Now for the next question, what is the difference between these 2 protein sources? So Bill told you he talked about his chicken. I don't know if you talked about, Bill, did you talk about the white beans yet? Did you put those in?
No, I didn't. I didn't put them in yet. But what I wanted to point out is that with the recipe, is that if you eliminate the chicken and just cook the vegetables with the garlic, that's a great side to any meal. And not only just broccoli and cauliflower, you could do it with carrots, Brussels sprouts, green beans. You could throw kale in there also, and you could just do a good mix of stuff, and that'd be a great side.
Great. It's almost like a pasta primavera, right?
It is it's exactly like a pasta primavera, for sure.
And I think we talked about this too, because this is one of my favorite things you talked about, Bill, was like on a Friday when you've got your veggies and they're kind of like left over, rather than tossing it in the bin, you could actually make a fried rice, a pasta primavera, use up those vegetables. Don't waste your food like Pam talked about. It's a big problem. So I want you to record your answers, the difference between these protein sources. This is becoming more and more important when you're educating children. They want to know. Protein is a hot topic. You need to be able to explain the types of proteins that are available. Many children are becoming vegetarian, pescatarian, vegan, you name it. And we need to be very articulate in terms of our protein sources. Okay, so now I'm moving on to the answers. So broccoli, it is a superfood. It oxygenates blood. It boosts the immune system. It's one of the few veggies that has vitamin K. It's got protein, fiber, iron, which is a mineral that most kids do not get enough of, and potassium. Extra virgin olive oil, heart healthy, monounsaturated fat, high in antioxidants, and also essential minerals. Pasta aids in digestion, a good source of energy and fiber. And then we have wheat, the white beans. It's a plant-based protein. It's a very important way. You're going to start seeing more and more about plant-based proteins. It's an excellent source of energy. Some people, it's actually, it's higher in carbohydrate than it is in protein, and it has essential nutrients. However, some people would say in the nutrition world that it's an incomplete protein, okay? But if you pair it with rice, or you pair it with pasta or other whole grains, it makes it complete. So if you come from certain cultural backgrounds where there's rice and beans, that actually creates a complete protein. So, you know, maybe we should go back to the way our grandparents cooked, because they didn't have a PhD in nutrition, but they certainly knew how to pair their foods properly. And then we have chicken, which is an animal-based protein that builds muscles, strengthens bones, and promotes heart health. But it's a saturated fat. And so we have to be mindful of that for certain people in the family, right? Make sure the skin is off the chicken. And this is a complete protein. So we just want to show you in the world of nutrition what that means. It means it has all the essential amino acids. So as Bill said, you can throw chicken in there, you can throw salmon in there, you could throw fish, whatever you have, or you could just go with your beans. You don't have to have the chicken in there. And that's
right. And it goes great with whole grains. And like you said, it becomes fried rice with a little soy sauce. Take the beans out. You can get really creative with this.
So wait, what you were
That's what I
saying is
do.
you could make this dish every other day and it would be different because you could put in
Yes.
different vegetables, different beans,
Yes.
different kind of pasta, different kind
Exactly.
of plant animal-based protein. So it's just such a versatile recipe that you can just do so many
Totally.
different ways. And Bill, you're showing us how easy it is.
Or like I said, it's actually done right now. I mean, I had the pasta. I cooked the pasta while you were doing the intro, and that took about like 8 to 10 minutes. Once you get rolling with this dish and you have everything prepped, it's literally 5 to 7 minutes for it to be cooked. And I'm not eating till later, but I might have to have some right now. So, but
Yay. How come you can't pass it through the computer to all of our 120 viewers?
Here it comes. Here. Well, this is my salad that we're gonna have tonight too. So, can you see that?
So Bill, why don't you give us a little bit more about that salad and the dressing you're making and everything else about the recipe?
So yeah, salad dressings are so highly processed right now. If you look at a salad dressing, you go buy a store-bought one, there's so many ingredients in something that's so basic, and there's so many ingredients to do what I'm going to make here that's very simple. And so and all you need is any form of acid. It could be lemon juice, red wine, any kind of vinegars, and lime juice, rice wine vinegar. I've got balsamic and red wine. This is one of our favorites here at home. And I'm just going to take a clove of garlic and grate it. And if you don't have one of these fancy graters, you could just mash it with a fork, chop it up and then mash it, and bang that in there. And then I'm going to take some olive oil. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 ingredients. I'm going to add a little salt to it. You can add a little red pepper flake to this. That's 5 ingredients. And this is 6 pepper. And I like to put a lot of pepper on it, so I might be here a while. But anyway, so that's 6 ingredients, all pronounceable, that you all know that are very easily accessible. And then you have one of these things from takeout or any other kind of Tupperware thing or anything, and you just shake it together like
and
that.
Wait, Bill, two of those 6 ingredients were salt and pepper, which are so easy, right? So
right, exactly. And you could
easy.
right, exactly. And then for a salad, just basically, again, these are the things we like in our house, and kids love salads so much. They love the crunch. They love that acid. Our daughter was eating salad since she was a very, very young age. And it's one of those things that it's an easy vegetable to have. So if your kid is not going to eat a cooked broccoli or cauliflower or anything, but they love salad, just put out a small bowl of salad. If you get like a cup or 2 of salad a day in a child, that's an amazing amount of vegetables that you're getting in. So then here from this point, I would put it into a larger bowl and then add some dressing to it. You can put as much as you want in. But we like in our house, we have lettuce, cucumbers, radishes, red onions, scallions, and carrots. And you could add some of the broccoli raw, cauliflower raw, any kind of vegetables. Just put in a salad, mix it up, eat it raw, crunch, crunch, crunch.
Yeah. So I have a question for each of you that came in from our participants. And once again, you can start putting questions in anytime in the question panel. Bill, talk a little bit about how you can chop and prepare vegetables in advance.
Yes, I do this all the time. So what basically I do is I'll get the vegetables in once a week or so, and then I'll cook them up. I'll cut them up separately, wash them all, and then put them in a bag together. And what I call a bag of veg that I make at the beginning of the week. And it could be mixed up. It could be separate as you want. but so the broccoli and cauliflower, you could have that ready to go on one day a week, and then maybe that'll be dinner on Monday, and then again it'll be dinner on Thursday or something like that. Or you could have enough in your house to have vegetables every day.
That sounds great, and makes it so easy when you come home from work
So
and
easy.
everybody's hungry. You know what? I used to do that with my kids, and I would then have the pan even on the stove when I walked in, throw in some olive oil, put it on, throw in the vegetables. When they heard that sizzle, they calmed down because they knew dinner was coming because it was already
Exactly.
just because I had the vegetables pre-chopped. Stacey, what about the nutritional value of vegetables when you do that pre-preparation and you cut them up beforehand?
I mean, that's always good, but I just wanted to put in there that like the freezer could be your best friend too. So like peas and, just so you have them on hand. Edamame is great to have it in the freezer. So when you come home and if you don't have something fresh, rather than not having a vegetable, you just open up the freezer, and that actually, because they're frozen at the time of when they're ready, it actually locks in the nutrition. I mean, it's still fresh as best, but freezer veggies are still a really good choice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, and we have another question about what can you do to keep lettuce leaves from wilting? Either one of you can answer that.
I'll let Bill.
Well, what it's the same philosophy of the bag of veg. So again, I'll get like 1 or 2 or 3 heads of lettuce in a week or so, and then I'll chop it up. I'll wash them really well, put a little towel in there to absorb some of that moisture, and it'll generally hold throughout the week. And if it gets a little brown or oxidized, it's totally fine. It's not bad.
Yeah, no, that's true. So Bill, just talk about putting together. You made the pasta, you made the vegetables, you made the chicken and the beans. Tell us what you did to put it all together.
Well, what I did was once you cook the chicken, you take it out briefly, and then you add the garlic, and then I put the vegetables in there. And then once the vegetables are cooked, again, it'll take about 3 minutes. Then you have your rinsed beans, your chicken, your butter, and then I reserve in my little espresso cup some of the pasta water. But if you don't have an espresso cup, you could use anything else. And then I just put everything back into the pot with the cooked pasta, and then stir it. And then I'll generally put it on a little lower heat so it gets to the butter will get that nice chef sheen that Stacey talked about before. And and so once you have that nice sheen, you don't have to use butter. Sometimes if I don't have any on hand, I'll add a little more extra virgin olive oil to it, just to give it a little that fat flavor or that sheen that Stacey was talking about. But it's really, and that's it. It's ready to go. So it all goes into the pot. If you're using rice, you could throw the rice in there. If you're using a grain salad or something like that, you just have a side, you just pour it right over the top and ready to go.
Great. All right. I have more questions coming in. So in a time-starved world, what's the best way to get families to save time for learning cooking skills together and savoring those meals they're preparing?
You have to make the time. I mean, the one thing I think the silver lining with this whole pandemic situation is that people actually had time. And so the challenge now is to keep that time and make sure that that becomes a priority. So as things open up, we have the tendencies to go back to like tremendous activities. And maybe there's try to find every day, but especially on a Sunday or when you actually have the time. I know people's, working jobs, multiple jobs. It's not easy, but you have to create the time, and it doesn't always have to be dinner. For me, it was always breakfast. In my house, my dad was on the bus, from New Jersey at 5:30 in the morning, and he didn't get home till 8. So what happened was he adjusted his schedule, so we had breakfast time together. Never did I really have dinner with my dad until the weekends. So I just think that we have to be flexible and we have to make it a priority.
I think also like what you said about the Monday thing, that's a great idea. And I think sort of cooking can be intimidating, right? To some people who haven't done it if they didn't do it as a kid growing up and they don't know certain things, and you could watch all the food television you want, but until you actually do something, it can be intimidating. So that's why I always tell people, don't stress about it too much. Learn a simple recipe and then do that together and master that recipe really well and get excited about that. Once you guys master that recipe, then you'll feel confident on moving on to another recipe. Or if you have somewhat of some skills, add another day, make that extra day, get the family involved, or when my wife was growing up, they each had a particular day where they had to cook something. So you can do it that way, and have the parent assist them on that. So there's many ways, and like you said, Stacey, we've had a lot of time to cook. I mean, I haven't gone out in a long time. I've been cooking almost every day, and after working and cooking. So, but I'm lucky I know how to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say too that we obviously know that there's been a real inequity during the pandemic, and you know, I've been fortunate to be able to work at home and cook more, and I know there are so many families that actually people have had to been out for work. It's been much more stressful, and time has actually been much more limited. So I think we have to look across the spectrum as we think about this. But going back to when my children were little, I got them involved in cooking, and it was, you know, they wanted something to do. They wanted to tell me about their day, and just saying, okay, here's a carrot, cut it up for me. You do this, you do that, was a way to have family time and basically make a meal. And then, as I've said a few times already, sitting down and eating together is one of the best things that we can do. And all of us now have our closer pod of people, but really whatever we can do to make mealtime, time to eat, and time to share goes such a long way for children. We have another, you know what, I'm going to come back to this other question in a minute. What I want to do is make sure that we get to thinking about drinks. And before we do that, we want to show another video of some children trying out milk.
Okay, my name's Kasim Goodhall, and this is my friend Joshua Aquino, and we're gonna try all these different milks.
What kind of milk?
We are.
What's your first milk you're trying?
We got the regular organic, this is the one we're trying first. Then we're trying the soy milk.
Second.
And for last, we're trying the rice.
Okay.
So rice.
And what are you trying it with?
Cheerios.
Cheerios, what kind of Cheerios?
Heart healthy.
Alright.
Just plain Cheerios,
So
right?
let's say, first one is organic.
Well,
Regular cow's milk, right?
Yeah.
Right, now we're on to the soy?
Digest this one real quick. Alright. Here goes the soy milk. Ah! There you go. It tastes like grass.
What would it taste like? What do you think?
hey, go ahead, it's like water.
Is it a thumbs up? What's happening? All right, now let's move on to the rice.
Alright, what's the rice milk? I don't have high hopes for this one.
All right.
After the soy milk, alright. Actually, this one's pretty good. This is good.
All mine taste like, the last two taste like water.
All right, so what do you guys think for do you have a final message for your viewers?
Don't eat soy milk.
Oh, come on.
Soy milk is good. Don't listen to them. All these milks are good right here.
Do you think people should eat healthy?
Yes.
Why?
Especially the fruit, especially the watermelons. Watermelons are great.
Okay.
Shout out to all of them.
Thanks, guys.
That was great. So now I'm going to turn it over to Stacey to talk about drinks and what we need to think about with our drinks that we're going to have with our meal.
That was during National Nutrition Month, and I spent 2 weeks in Camden. I was living in Philadelphia, and I did all the public schools, and I learned so much, and I had so much fun. And I think that's the most important thing, is that you have to realize that, you know, this isn't serious. You know, we can have fun doing this. And the kids love it. So the more you make it fun, the more they will engage. And, you know, it's okay to be a thumbs down and not like something. And it's funny. And it's okay. It's not a big deal. I don't like everything I try, but at least I try it. So here is like, now Bill made this amazing dinner. What are we having to drink? And this is really something, when you think of a nutritionist, you don't necessarily think of beverages, you think of food. And this is one of the biggest hurdles we face as professionals on nutrition with children and adults, everybody. So there have never been so many choices of beverages, I don't think ever. I mean, there's like 2 huge aisles down the supermarkets filled with beverage choices. And this is even scarier, the amount of the beverage, right? So this 20-ounce fluid ounce Gatorade is what people are drinking. People are drinking supersized bottles as if it's a single serve. So remember that a serving of a beverage is 8 ounces, not 20 ounces, but many people, especially children, are drinking the entire bottle. Okay, that's a lot of servings and that's a lot of sugar. Okay, this is a really big problem. Not only is it extra calories, but we're talking about in the food insecurity world, why do many of these children have their potentially diabetes, okay, and obesity? So we have to start looking at the big picture, not just the food that's on the table, but everything they're consuming and the lack of activity. So here we are, we've got how many teaspoons of sugar in that 20-ounce bottle? So you look at the sugar, which is 34 grams, and then you divide it by 4 grams of sugar, which is every 4 grams of sugar equals 1 teaspoon. So you take the 34, you divide it by 4, and now we're talking about 8.5 teaspoons of sugar. It's a lot of sugar in a bottle. So you could do this also for cereal. It's staggering when you do it for cereal and not just beverages. Okay, but here's our activity, Sugar Busters. So let's see what you guys come up with. I want you guys, again, record your answers. Here's a list your beverages from least to most sugars. We've got Snapple, water, Minute Maid, apple juice, and we have the Coca-Cola. So I want you guys to list least to most sugars of the 4 bottles. I'll give you a second. Dun, 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 dun. We should have our little timer. Okay, now let's see what you guys, if you got this right. The least amount of sugar is water. Of course, right? It's got 0 sugar. So here we are, and I wanted to show you, the 20-ounce bottle, but I do want to go into the 8 ounce. 8 ounces. We have to talk about serving sizes too. 8 fluid ounces is a serving size, and we have to be mindful of the serving sizes. It's not the package, it's the serving size. So the next one is the iced tea. Well, you think, okay, iced tea, 18 grams of sugar, divide that by 4, and now we're talking about 4.5 teaspoons of sugar in that Snapple iced tea. And some people might say, okay, the kids might say that's really refreshing. I'd love an iced tea. It's hot out. But look how much sugar is in that, just the 8 ounces. Number 2. Number 3. Oh, you're not going to believe it. The greatest amount of sugar is, we're going to do our little drum roll, and it's tied. No way. Can you believe it? It's Coke and apple juice. 26. I put 20. Sorry, I had a little typo. So it's 26 grams of sugar, and that's divided by 4. We're talking about 6.5 teaspoons of sugar in apple juice and the soda. That is a lot of sugar, but we have to be mindful. What's the difference? Okay, apple juice has more vitamins and minerals, and of course Coca-Cola doesn't have any. So it's just straight up sugar. And apple juice so this is why your classic dietitian will tell you to dilute your apple juice, dilute the juice. And it's one of the biggest problems now. Apple juice is 100% apple juice, not apple drinks. Apple juice is a much better choice than the Coca-Cola. However, water and other choices are better. So how do we want to stay hydrated? We want to, have water, and there's milks. So you saw on the kids that many of the children in different cultures are lactose intolerant. So for example, the milks, a regular glass of milk, they can't drink, or, it gives them cramps or it gives them digestive problems. So rather introducing them to other choices of milk, such as rice and soy, rather than moving over to apple juice or soda. And that is like a huge problem in many cultures. So as you can see, we have a lot of different choices rather than just cow's milk. And you crack the code. This is our order. And I just want to say thumbs up. So back to you, Pam.
Thank you so much, Stacey. That was great. Yes, think about your drinks and think about how much sugar we're supposed to have to stay healthy, and all of these drinks just add so much, and it's something that we really, really, really need to think about. So I have a couple of more questions before we get to our next part here. And first is, my son eats healthy in general, but is also a picky eater. Do you have any ideas for introducing new foods to the diet of picky eaters? And I just want to start. I was an extremely picky eater as a child. My first son ate everything. I thought I was like the dietitian who had figured out how to raise kids to eat everything. And then I had my second son, and he was really picky. And what I realized is what I talked about with that division of responsibility. I just had to keep putting out all different healthy options of things that he likes. Sometimes then he still would say, I don't like this today. And I was like, these are the options. And when I made it clear that what I put out was the only foods that were being offered, then he started to eat the foods. It's when we say like, oh, you don't want that? Okay, I'll make this. Oh, I'll make that, that it ends up getting crazier. So just keep offering healthy foods, offer things that the child likes along with some new things, and let them be the ones that bring it on. And I'd love for Bill and Stacey to add on to that as well.
Well,
Well, go ahead, Stacey.
yeah, I feel like my life is filled with picky eaters. And so the most important thing is that you actually figure out if the pickiness is, something really, something motorized, if it's a taste thing, if they had, sometimes they have indigestion, or, there's all kinds of things. You have swallowing evaluations, you have to rule that out. Or is it a behavioral? And so picky eaters get a lot of attention for being picky. So we have to break the cycle. It's always good to expose them to other kids that are more open to trying different things. And also what we do at Health Barn, especially with the seedlings, the 2 to 5 year olds, is we have a different fruit or vegetable each week. And they get a sticker that says, I tried broccoli, I tried this, and grapes, strawberries, I mean, you name it, we go through it. And then what's happened is that we celebrate that. And then they try it and they get their thumbs up, thumbs to the side, or thumbs down. The most important thing is that they are actually, if they get a thumbs down, it's not a big deal. They don't have to eat it. And so many parents have their food lists and their charts at home. And as they said, oh, you tried this, they get a star. There's all kinds of fun ways that you can chart their progress to make them know they're succeeding at something. And really just don't give up, just keep working at it, but celebrate when they do it. A lot of kids get a lot of attention when they give it the thumbs down all the time.
Yeah, thank you. Bill.
And I go back to what you did, Pam, is that, this is kind of what we eat. This is what we're eating today. And I've been in homes where people are making, I've gone to cook a few places where I look in the sink and there's like 2 different pots of macaroni and cheese for each child or something, because they want different ones and they're not eating what the family's eating. I don't have a lot of time for that. I think it's also just putting stuff out and eventually they'll try it. I remember like with cauliflower in my house, I would just put it out and sometimes my daughter wouldn't eat it. And then eventually she just started eating it. But I think it goes back to like giving them attention. I think you can't have that fight. You can't make it a fight. And I don't actually, sometimes I think like you don't want to celebrate it because you just want it to be like, hey, we're eating food and this is what's for dinner. How was your day? And then you just go on. And if they're not eating and they're just sitting there, you just say, well, what's going on? Like, you maybe talk a little bit about, but just try not to make too big of a deal out of it. And then I think eventually they'll come through.
I completely agree with my son who was picky. If I kind of ignored him not eating, and I also ignored it when he tried something that he hadn't eaten before, that's when he did it more. That's when he started eating just all different things because it wasn't made a big deal. So I think that that's really, really important. So now what I want to do is we have another video that really shows how kids, once they learn about nutrition, really want to become advocates for change.
We're from Haddonfield, New Jersey, and we're in 5th grade. And we're writing essays about chocolate milk.
And we think that it should be out of school. So you think chocolate milk, so your essays you're for what?
We're for banning chocolate milk because it has too much sugar and too many calories.
Okay.
And it can give you a lot of sicknesses.
It does have nutrients from white milk, but it also has lots of sugars and calories, and it's not healthy for kids to drink.
So Stacey, why don't you tell us a little bit about those kids, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bill, because Wellness in the Schools also does a lot about chocolate milk.
Well, I was actually surprised because we were talking about, again, introducing not, the default is chocolate milk because they're not drinking the white milk, but actually giving them other choices besides cow's milk. There are other choices. So, I don't know, this is my personal opinion. I think chocolate milk is as bad as a candy bar. I mean, I'm not into chocolate milk in the school. And so somebody might feel differently, but that's my opinion. And so what happened was we do the white milk challenge, which you saw that. And that day the kids came, they stormed me and they were like, and I didn't even know they wrote this essay. And then that day, and I did the white milk challenge that day, and they stormed the cafeteria and it was sold out of white milk. There was a ton of chocolate milk left. And the next day, and the principal told me it was like unbelievable. The lunch ladies were going crazy that the white milk was flying out of the cafeteria. And I just am so proud of these kids because when they learn something, and that's what, Pam was saying about education is power. And then they say, well, why are we getting this chocolate milk? And you know what? Okay, you might say, yeah, it tastes good. And you might want it every once in a while for a treat, but every day is not a good choice. And I know teachers came up to me and said, thank you so much. Because classroom management's tough when you've got kids, drinking a lot of chocolate milk and all the other stuff they eat with all their packaged foods. So thumbs up to these kids that made a point of, writing essays and taking action in their school. And I think kids can do it. We have to give them a chance.
That's right. So remember, we have a really challenging food environment. We all have to figure out how we navigate through it to make time and then become advocates for change. So Bill, talk about what Wellness in the Schools does around milk and chocolate milk as well.
Well, one of our goals when you become a school with Wellness in the Schools is that we want to eliminate chocolate milk. And for all the reasons that you guys are talking about, from getting too much sugar, for the kids being all hopped up on sugar going into the second half of the day. But I think also, and there's water available, you know what I mean? So, but the biggest problem is sometimes not the children, it's the parents who, once we do take the milk out of the school, the kids might complain about it. And then the parents will call the principal and try to get it back in there. So you have to have in that kind of situation, you have to have everybody on board from if you don't include the kids, but the parents and the principal have to be on board to make that happen.
That's right.
I also just want to say that, and this is really important, starting children early and sticking to it, not as a parent or, it's social pressure. And children's palates change. So if you start eating a lot of sugary foods, which is pretty much all of what is with children's processed foods, then they have the same thing with the chicken nuggets. They all taste the same. So once the child establishes a palate like this, you give them anything fresh or anything, even chicken, even what Bill's making, all of a sudden they're like, well, that's not the chicken I eat. I only eat dinosaur chicken nuggets. Well, how did that happen when a 5-year-old says, I only eat dinosaur chicken nuggets? So, maybe, just maybe if they had the chicken thighs and continue to have that, or, and then they'd say, well, these dinosaur chicken nuggets, they don't taste so good. I don't know what this is. It's the other way around. So once a child establishes a palate, it's very difficult to break it. So we have to be mindful that it's a lifetime. You're establishing these palates that are detrimental to their health.
Yeah.
Well, it also goes back to cooking. Sorry, what you're saying is like, if you're able to sort of have those dinosaur nuggets and your kids really likes them a lot, maybe create not a dinosaur nugget, obviously, but a homemade sort of chicken nugget that you can even bake or something. Let them try it. And have them make it, but in that way you can take those steps to reversing that damaged palate.
Yeah, That's exactly right. Okay, we have a lot of other great questions that have come in. So one says, I love your creative ideas about how to get the whole family involved in meal preparation. In addition to getting them involved in chopping, can you share some tips, particularly for working with reluctant teens?
Oh my
Bill,
God.
I know you have a
Yeah, you go ahead.
almost done teenager daughter.
He's almost done. But there was a point where I think I was, and my wife will verify this, I was like trying to force her to help me, right? And that did not work at all. And so it just became a part where I just would cook dinner, and then I like to have them involved in deciding what the menu is going to be. So after a certain point, we would create the menu at the beginning of the week, and then that way I would know how to shop. And then if you allow them to have that one or two sort of idea, then maybe at that point they'll come and help along. But have them involved in the meal planning, have them go to the store with you. I think those are all ways to sort of have reluctant teens to help out somehow.
Yeah, no, I think getting them involved. I know my kids too. It was once they went off to college and all of a sudden they had cooked a lot with me younger, not so much as teenagers because they just got busy and had a lot more homework. And then they really became interested in cooking again. Okay, we have another question. Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, my daughter lives with 3 other girls, and they all are involved in the cooking in their apartment because now they're stuck inside. They can't go out, so they cook for themselves.
That's great.
I would also say that I just want to say that we have a master chef program, which is the 13 and above. And I think giving them, responsibility, but also we work with groups of the teens. And one of the recipes they came up with at Health Barn is the Dolicious, which is a frozen cookie dough. And I said, okay, guys, you have to come up with your own recipe. That wouldn't have been the choice of the recipe I would have picked, but we did it. And the challenge was they had to do it healthy. And they had taste testers. We did it during camp, and the younger kids were their taste testers, and they had to go back twice because they didn't like it. And they ended up using a tofu. They used a silken tofu because it didn't have, the cream cheese gave a sour tart taste. And we froze it. And it's one of our most popular recipes, and the teens did it. And, you just have to meet them where they're at. Like if they want to if they want to come up with a frozen cookie dough, let them, it's let them be creative. I think with teens, they have to be creative, and they have to learn, you can make a lot of mistakes. The thing is that nobody, like Bill, we're all watching Bill, he's like a chef, right? A trained chef. But you know what? It's okay to make mistakes. It's not a big deal. It's like, and actually you could just laugh about it. I think we take it way too seriously. Like, unless it's really a disaster and you can't eat it, the times you can eat.
Let me just share, since you mentioned tofu, let me just share a quick story that was working with teens, and it was some of my master students, and they went in and somehow tofu came up, and these teens said they would never eat tofu. And they did say that one food that they liked was scallion pancakes from Chinese restaurants. So the students found a tofu dip recipe that basically had some of the similar ingredients to scallion pancakes. It had scallions in it and soy sauce and sesame oil, and it just was this dip. The student who had been the most reluctant to eat tofu at the end of the session came up and started putting her finger in and licking. When everybody else was done eating, but licking the bowl. She was like, I love this so much. So it just shows what can happen. All right, we got some other great questions. What are each of your opinions on seltzer for children, like Le Creu's? I think seltzer for kids is fine. And I used to have my kids have seltzer and put just a teeny bit of juice that made it a little bit sweet. So it was like even more diluted than what Stacey was saying. It was like 1/8 or maybe even 1/16 juice. What do you guys think?
I'm thumbs up on seltzer.
All right.
Me too. Yeah.
3 thumbs up on seltzer. So what are some healthy snacks, and should a child have snacks?
That's a good question.
I'll start out and say, one of the things that I realized from the time that I was a child to when I was raising children is food, at least in the United States, and I actually think this is really different in France and has stayed different in France, even as our food culture has changed. There was food at every single event my kids went to. whether it was a religious event, whether it was a sports event. And I think that we have to really think that if we want kids to eat meals, they can go several hours between eating once they're beyond a toddler stage. And if we really want them to eat meals, we should have them enjoy what other activities are doing and then make mealtime time to eat. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I sometimes go a very long period of time without eating myself, but I think things like having apples out, our executive director, Nancy Easton, talks about having a version of the bag of veg is having raw veg like peppers or carrots cut up that you could just put out for kids to eat and maybe make some dips or something like that. Yeah, apples and peanut butter. It's the way to go.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, I mean, I think that the other thing is that we have to eat complete meals. We have to eat balanced meals. So if you're eating a bag of goldfish, then you're starving usually. So a lot of the times I say, just have a sandwich, just have a turkey sandwich or have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Eat like half of, or have soup, have some soup that's a little more hearty with the chicken noodle soup. So, I mean, because some of the times the foods that we're snacking on is essentially not satisfying. And many of the times kids are bored and they're eating out of boredom, or the foods they're eating are actually creating this insulin spike and drop where they're starving and they really are hungry. So we have to be mindful that it should have, just like Bill's recipe, it has a fat, it has a protein, and it has carbs. It's got all three macronutrients, and we have to think about our meals that they should have, think of my plate, and you should really think about making sure that all of the food groups, if possible, can be represented. And then you won't have these like snack attacks all the time.
That's right. It just becomes like a meal. How do you get parents involved in the process of eating healthfully for children, especially parents who are not so open to eating a variety of food themselves?
Well, that is the $1 million question, Miss Pam.
It is. I mean, I've definitely had a lot of kids that I've worked with go home and talk to their parents, and then the parents come to me and be like, what's going on? My kid is now telling us to go to the store and buy vegetables. And, I think that it can be opening up to the whole family. I've also had a lot of families who the kids have talked about how they actually really talk to their families and they really did transform how they eat. So hopefully parents will be able to do that. I just have one, we've gotten so many questions and I really want to apologize that we're not going to get to all of them. So the last one that we're going to be able to get to are, what are some effective strategies to expose kids to diverse cuisines and help them to appreciate them? And Bill, I'll let you start.
I think just, again, it's like cooking them, you know what I mean? I think trying to sort of be adventurous yourself. There's a lot of I'm for many years, my whole cooking style was farm to table American, right? So there wasn't if I wanted to do something that was sort of Asian-ish, I wouldn't put an Asian ingredient in. I would try to develop it using ingredients that were in season or sort of that were, relative to American cooking. But I think, now that the museum, with the representation of all the art that's in there, I've been doing a lot more sort of global cooking, and that's been really wonderful. Like right now, we're doing some Indian food on our menu, and it's something I've never cooked before. And I've gotten recipes from a friend and I'm looking at these things, this is crazy. But what I've learned is that I never really liked it, but now after I'm cooking it and know what's going into it and how it's done, I'm really loving it. And I think it's sort of like you yourself has to be adventurous enough to cook the food yourself and then introduce it to your family. And I think or even trying to go different restaurants if you have the means to do that.
Yeah, thank you. Stacey, do you want to add on anything?
I mean, I just think this goes back to curiosity. And I think that in New York City, people, it's very diverse. And, you know, there's so many cool, inexpensive restaurants. I mean, I remember, you know, hands-on type thing. I remember going for my Ethiopian, and I went to Ethiopia and I love like, you know, the teff and eating it with the pancake. And I just thought, wow, this is so cool. And it just, I just think that it's exciting. You want to know, you know, what I love Indian food. I mean, I tend to be more vegetarian, so I wanted to eat super healthy. If you want to learn how to eat healthy, you know, and interesting because of the spices and more of an interesting cuisine, Indian food's the way to go. So you just have to, it's a curiosity, and everybody has to take part in it. So you might be interested, maybe travel sparks, you know, look at the map, look at the globe and say, hey, where do I want to go today? I want to go to Africa today. Like, well, what do they eat in Africa? And then it just sparks all kinds of, what do they grow in Africa? You know,
Yeah.
what
All
are
right,
what
you know,
veggies?
yeah, we're just about out of time, but yeah.
Well, just real quick, the other
love
thing
starving
too.
around the world. Go ahead.
Sorry, the other thing I was going to say, Pam, is that, you know, a dumpling is a pierogi, is a ravioli.
Yeah.
You know, the noodle, you know, a stir-fry noodle dish is a pasta, is an egg noodle in my, you know, Hungarian. So there's so many similarities, and it's just a matter of the spices and the amount of meat or vegetables in something.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to turn it back over to Marguerite. I want to thank all of you for joining us. I hope you got a lot out of this. Remember, adults are responsible for what, when, and where food happens, and children are responsible for what and how much and even whether they eat. Marguerite, close us out.
Thank you. Pam, Stacey, and Bill, our warmest congratulations. Unfortunately, it's time to conclude, but this was a lively and passionate discussion. We learned so much on how to engage our younger generation in its nutritional journey, and we'll make sure to follow your tips. Thank you all for tuning in, and please send us your comments and also send special topics you would be interested in hearing. We intend to make this FAAFC webinar the first of a new series of educational sessions on child nutrition and child health. Let's make children come first together. Bonsoir, bon dîner, et merci, and stay well. Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
Bon appetit.
Yes.